In 1944, on the eve of his departure for Burma to fight against Japan, Captain Lin Zhenheng of the Chinese Expeditionary Force had this picture in uniform taken. He's the 8th-generation heir to the Wu Feng Lin family in Taiwan. His father, Lin Zumi, was awarded the rank of Major General by the nationalist government in 1919. Lin Zumi's father, that is, Lin Zhenheng's grandfather, was Lin Chaodong, a famous general in Taiwan in late Qing dynasty. In 1895, Japanese troops entered Taiwan. Lin Chaodong summoned his family to the Grand Flower Hall that was just built 1 year ago.
就在那大花厅，周围不是有柱子吗？都放上了炸药。然后呢，他把全家人召集在一起，就说呢，我准备跟这个台湾呢共存亡。如果我战死了，全家人点火升天，啊，就留一个根，就留我爷爷，就是把他送回大陆去。
It turned out that the explosives were not detonated. As a court official, Lin Chaodong returned to the mainland on imperial order. In 1904, he died in Shanghai with grievance. In the name of arranging his father's funeral, Lin Zumi moved the whole family back to Gulangyu Island, Xiamen. On November 18, 1913, the Ministry of Internal Affairs of the Republic of China issued the Xuzi No. 1 certificate to Lin Zumi. After Taiwan was ceded to Japan in 1895, Lin Zumi became the first Taiwan resident who officially resumed his Chinese nationality. Then, Lin Zumi began to devote himself to Sun Yat-sen's revolutionary cause. In 1918, he was appointed as the commander of the Southern Fujian Army. In 1925, Lin Zumi was killed by a reactionary warlord in Jiangzhou. Regrettably, he didn't realize his father's wish.
林朝栋呢，我这个曾祖父啊，就他死在上海，死的时候他在我爷爷的手就说这个台湾呢是在我任内丢失的，希望你们呢将来能够收复台湾。
Regaining Taiwan had become the last wish of 2 generations. Lin Zhenheng has kept this in mind since his childhood. The anti-Japanese war broke out. Lin Zhenheng gave up his favorite art major and applied for the Nanjing Central Military Academy. After graduation, he left his family behind and embarked on the anti-Japanese front line, from Kunlun Pass to Burma. In 1945, in a fight with the Japanese army, he suffered 16 stab wounds, badly mutilated, on the blood-soaked battlefield. During China's anti-Japanese war, thousands of Taiwan heroes like Lin Zhenheng had found their ways to the mainland, fighting in the front lines of the anti-Japanese war.
当时我们想，怎么样才可以把这个台湾的民众从日本人的统治下解放出来？一定要有台湾的抗日的力量啊，要跟祖国的抗战力量结合起来，我们才可以打胜这个日本，才有办法光复台湾。
In 1940, 5 Taiwan youths walked on the land in eastern Guangdong. They were looking for anti-Japanese forces. The head of the group was Xiao Daoying, who graduated from Taipei Imperial University. Taipei Imperial University was founded in 1928. In Japan's 50-year occupation, it was the only university in Taiwan. Only a unique few Taiwan youngsters could enter this school. There were very few of them.
那我父亲在日据时代是台北帝国大学第1届的医学部的这个毕业生。当然他从小的时候，长辈都会一直在谈到1895的这个战争。
In that 1895 battle, Xiao Daoying's grandfather, Xiao Guangming, was a leader of the anti-Japanese volunteer forces. Both his father and uncle died in the battle, fighting the invading Japanese at Xiao family's courtyard.
所以他从小灌输到就是说，哎，我们还是中国人，我们是受这个日本帝国主义的这个侵略和占领的，所以他一直在想是说，包括从高雄中学那个时候就已经跟很多的好朋友筹划的，要怎么样回到大陆来参加抗战。 然后后来也认识了这个钟和明。
Zhong Heming, also known as Zhong Haodong, was a student of Taipei High School. Like Xiao Daoying, he was also from Pingtun's Liudui Hakka village. Jiang Biyu, a nurse at Taipei Hospital, also joined them. Her adopted father was Jiang Weishui, the pioneer of the nationalist movement in Taiwan.
蒋渭水的这个女儿蒋碧玉和钟和明，他们两个是夫妻，然后跟我爸爸后来也认识了我妈妈啊，他也有意愿要回大陆来参加抗战。那个时候的大家的心都向着祖国。
Two couples, along with Zhong Heming's cousin Li Nanfeng, 5 passionate youths started their tortuous journey to fight in the motherland. Their stories were later written by Taiwan writer Lan Bozhou as a novel Son of the Covered Wagon, and then filmed by Taiwan director Hou Xiaoxian, titled Good Men, Good Women.
他们转的很曲折，到了1940年，用各种方法到了上海，然后后来又到了香港，从香港转进到大陆惠阳，到了国民党的管制区，可是马上又被逮捕，因为他们被误认为是日本间谍。
Returning to the motherland for the anti-Japanese war, we were tried by a judge as Japanese spies or Communist Party members. I said aloud in Mandarin, "You have right to shoot us, but you can never stop us from being patriotic."
那本来是被当作日谍要被枪毙的，那还好碰到邱念台他就想办法要解救这5个台湾青年。邱念台就是1895台湾民主国这个台湾义勇军的领导人邱宏甲的儿子。
Chu Niantai was born in Miaoli. His family returned to their hometown when he was 1 year old. His father named him Niantai, hoping he would never forget to recover Taiwan. After the 918 incident of 1931, he devoted himself to fight against Japan. In 1938, he organized the Eastern District Service Regiment to launch anti-Japanese guerrilla warfare in Luofu Mountain, Guangdong.
钟浩东、萧道印，他们就到了邱念台领导的东区服务队，从事这一些抗战的敌后工作，一直到抗战胜利。
During the resistance war, Jiang Biyu had to entrust her newborn baby in the care of a local family. It was not until 40 years later that she finally found her son in the mainland.
卢沟桥事变爆发以后，经过不完全的统计，一直到抗战胜利，大概总计有5万多个台湾志士就渡海到大陆参加国民党或者共产党的领导的组织的这种抗战。
In June and July of 1940, a group of children from Taiwan went to Chong'an County of Fujian province to engage in anti-Japanese propaganda activities. They engraved big characters, "Beat Japanese invaders, defend my China" on the Cuiping Peak of Wuyi Mountain. They were supposed to be in schools, but they had become soldiers. During the anti-Japanese war, they were special children soldiers of the Chinese army. Their leader was General Li Youbang. In 1906, Li Youbang was born in the Luzhou Li family house. He was the 5th generation of Luzhou Li family. Their first-generation sisters migrated to Taiwan in the later years of Emperor Qianlong's reign. They were originally penniless. After 3 generations of struggles, the family changed its fate because of imperial examinations. This old house of air of poetry and ritual in the 1920s used to be a gathering place of Taiwan Cultural Association. Li Youbang was admitted by the Taipei Normal School when he was 16. While in school, he joined the Cultural Association and accepted the ideological enlightenment against Japanese colonial rule, thus embarking on the anti-Japanese journey. In March 1924, Li Youbang suddenly disappeared from school. It was assumed that he was wanted by the authorities, so he fled overnight.
在那个红楼旁边有个派出所，我父亲他就跟了一些人就捣毁这个派出所，捣毁以后，他就从高雄投奔到大陆。大陆说那时候刚好黄埔军校第2期，他就加入黄埔军校。
In 1937, the all-out war against Japan broke out. In November 1938, Li Youbang came from Jinhua, Zhejiang to Chong'an, Fujian. There was a reclamation and cultivation center for Taiwan people, which gathered from coastal areas in Fujian over 560 Taiwan compatriots. Li Youbang gave an anti-Japanese speech to them, hoping to organize them to form a Taiwan anti-Japanese volunteers army. Li Youbang's proposal was supported by 2 important nationalist party members of Fujian and Zhejiang. Meanwhile, the Communist Party was secretly assisting them with specific instructions from Zhou Enlai. Li Youbang's personal secretary, Zhang Yijun, was helping him as an unexposed Communist Party member. This is a song about the Taiwan Volunteers Corps' founding purpose. The lyricist was Zhang Yijun. He invited the author of Song of the Guerrillas, He Liuting, to compose it. On February 22, 1939, the Taiwan Volunteers Corps and the Taiwan Youth League were established at Jiufang Lane, Jinhua, Zhejiang. The first group consisted of 22 members, including 6 children. Later, the second and third batch of over 150 people arrived from Wuyi Mountain. Those above 18 were grouped in the Volunteers Corps, while all others were grouped in the Youth League. The Youth League of the Volunteers Corps lined up behind their banners. They were the symbol of Taiwan compatriots' participation in the anti-Japanese war. The Youth League team leader was Wang Zhengnan. His 2 elder brothers with his 50-year-old father, Wang Yike, joined the Volunteers Corps, while his younger sister, Wang Zhengbei, joined the Youth League with him. Huang Yuehua, who was quite experienced in the Youth League, was not even 14 years old. Her father was in the Volunteers Corps. Her younger sister, Huang Yuejuan, and little brother, Huang Zhongling, also joined the Youth League. Guo Fuyi was the first member of the Youth League. He was only 10 years old then.
义勇队都是大人，他们主要的工作，在台湾本岛的，在地后的，而且参加战斗的，也有从事生产，像这个樟脑或者是制药各方面的，还有最主要的。 后来设立了很多的台湾医院，为老百姓、为居民来服务。
In September 1939, the signboard of Taiwan Hospital attached to the Taiwan Volunteers Corps was hung outside the Taiwan Volunteers Corps headquarters. The first Taiwan hospital was established in Jinhua. After that, the Taiwan Volunteers Corps built 3 more hospitals in Chuzhou and Lanxi of Zhejiang, as well as in Jiandiang of Fujian. Those Taiwan hospitals had excellent medical skills and charged low fees. They were widely welcomed by soldiers and civilians.
那么少年团的工作是以文艺的各种方式来鼓吹抗日。
到处写标语，办壁报，那么唱歌、演街头剧，慰劳伤兵慰劳前线的将士反正抗战的工作，我们都一一的进行。
Guo Fuyi was the protagonist of the youth troupe, with many fans.
郭威他演话剧台湾小主人他是主角，他表演得很好，所以我们那时候就跟2、3位同学讲说，还是我们来参加义勇队好吗？
A show performed by Guo Fuyi made Zheng Haitao join the Taiwan Volunteers Corps. He has since become a Taiwan resident. at the old village house in Minho. A singing and dancing star of the Youth League lived here. She was the daughter of a Taiwan doctor, brought back by her parents to Fuzhou when she was a baby. In 1941, when she was 10, she joined the Youth League with her brother.
跳舞唱歌我经常，我那个时候我是这样的黄河大合唱，松花江上好多跳了大道进行曲，大道进行曲啊，大道江去鬼子门里头上看去，这个还有就是说海军舞，啊，是这样子的。 啊，少年团舞这样子啊，播种的那个舞，一个一个播种的，跳好多。
少年团在工作中学习，在学习中生活。那么当时的我们的生活方式是以战地当课堂，以抗战事迹当教材。
For the children of the Youth League, General Li Youbang was a serious captain as well as a kind father. Li Youbang originally insisted that he would never get married before China regained Taiwan. Also, a female guerrilla fighter from a wealthy family in Hangzhou once vowed not to marry without victory. But destiny changed their intentions.
因为母亲。 当时他是有加入游击队，加入游击队，然后跟我父亲这样接近了。
In 1941, Li Youbang and Yan Xiufeng got married. They became a romantic love story of the wartime. They had been through 10 years of hardships together. In 1942, the Battle of Zhejiang and Jiangxi broke out and Jinhua fell. Li Youbang led the Volunteers Corps heading southward to Longyan, Fujian. Under the direct leadership of the Political Department of the Military Commission, he was involved in the political campaign against the enemy as the anti-Japanese situation evolved. The Volunteers Corps was expanded into the General Volunteers Corps. Li Youbang was promoted to Chief Captain.
我们队长李友邦，他确实是爱台湾、爱国家的一个人，保卫祖国，守护台湾。 这是他的中心思想。
In early 1940, Li Youbang headed to the war capital Chongqing in order to cooperate with other Taiwan anti-Japanese groups. Chongqing, indiscriminately bombarded by Japan, brought together nearly 100 like-minded Taiwan exiles. They formed multiple anti-Japanese groups, but in weak and poor organization. Major General Liu Qiguan of the General Political Department of the Military Commission was ordered to promote the unity and cooperation of these Taiwan compatriots anti-Japanese organizations. At that time, apart from Li Youbang's Taiwan Volunteers Corps, another big Taiwan anti-Japanese group was the Taiwan National Revolutionary Alliance, led by Xie Nanguan. After arriving in Chongqing, Li Youbang met with Xie Nanguan and Liu Qiguan. They reached a consensus on further advancing the Taiwan revolutionary movement in response to the motherland's war of resistance. Thereafter, in March 1940, they jointly established the Taiwan Revolutionary Organizations Union. In February 1941, the Taiwan Revolutionary Organizations Union developed into the Taiwan Revolutionary Alliance. It was formed through the integration of 5 Taiwan anti-Japanese groups, led by Li Youbang, Xie Nanguan, Zhang Bangjie, and others. Thus, the establishment of the mainland's largest anti-Japanese organization by Taiwan people was declared. The main purpose of the alliance was to gather all revolutionary forces in Taiwan to defeat Japanese imperialism and recover Taiwan. The alliance launched a vigorous campaign to recover the land and the province. The alliance submitted proposals for the recovery of Taiwan repeatedly to the central government. It stated that Taiwan originally belongs to our country. Taiwan people are Chinese nationals. Taiwan was occupied by Japanese sea pirates. Our government should regard it as an occupied area and strive to recover it to console our countrymen. When writing the characters, resistance war must be won, Li Sen was in his 70s. This veteran of 1911 revolution has spent 10 years in Taiwan. When he was 19, he traveled from his hometown Minhou to Taiwan. Then he studied at Taiwan Western School and Telegraph School, founded by Liu Mingchuan. At 27, he participated in the 1895 Residence War, playing the tech backbone role. During his 12-year tenure as chairman of the national government, his most important speech was delivered on the day after the Pearl Harbor incident broke out. On December 8, 1941, the Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor and provoked the Pacific War. The next day, the United States, Great Britain, China, and other countries declared war on Japan. Li Sen read the national government declaration of war on Japan. It is announced to all Chinese and foreign parties that all treaty agreements, including those involving Sino-Japanese relations, shall be abolished.
日本是这个依据马关条约来窃取台湾的哈。那么在这个中国对日本的宣战公告里面，中国就宣布以往这个一切跟中日关系有关的合同、条约、协定统统作废，统统作废。实际上以这个对日宣战公告来说，马关条约已经失效了，因为在这个国际法上，两国处于战争状态的话，以前订的条约就失效了。
Chinese people had a terribly tough time in the anti-Japanese war. The 4 years arduous fight against the Japanese ended. The international anti-fascist task forces finally formed an alliance. In November 1943, the Taiwan Party branch directly under the Nationalist Party was relocated from Changzhou to this ancient castle outside of Yong'an. A group of Taiwan folks hung a couplet on the gate of the ancient castle, recovered Taiwan and revitalized China. They named this building Fujian Fortress. In March 1943, Taiwan's Nationalist Party headquarters was established in Changzhou. Dr. Weng Junmi was the first one who joined Tongmeng Hui in Taiwan. Dr. Weng Junmi was appointed by Chiang Kai-shek as chairman of the party branch of Taiwan. The Taiwan Party branch was committed to nurturing Taiwan members, collecting information on Japanese troop moves, and developing anti-Japanese organizations. In November 1943, Weng Junmi was suspected of being poisoned by Japanese agents. After Weng Junmi was murdered, Taiwan's party headquarters was successfully headed by Lin Zhong, Xiao Yizeng, Chu Nantai, Xie Dongmin, and others. They made the Yong'an Fujian Fortress their base and carried on work until the resistance war ended in victory. Xie Dongmin was from Changhua. In his later years, he recalled, "In April of the 14th year of the Republic of China, I detoured from Taiwan to Shanghai for school. Because I couldn't accept Japanese Empire's rule, I returned to the motherland. At that time, I swore in my mind, as long as Japan rules Taiwan, I would never go back to my treasured island homeland." Shortly after Xie Dongmin and his group settled in Fujian Fortress, exciting news came from Cairo. From November 22nd to 26, 1943, the leaders of China, the United States, and the United Kingdom held a conference in Cairo.
之前，中国领导人从来没有出国参加过任何的国际会议哈。那么开罗会议应该说是，中国第一次参加一个国际峰会，是中国有史以来的第一遭吧。
At the conference, a joint communique was issued by China, the United States, and the United Kingdom, the Cairo Declaration.
开罗宣言对于这个台湾问题做出了非常明确的规定那么它是这样表述的，就是日本窃取于中国的领土，例如东北、台湾、澎湖，战后必须归还中国，这样是一个非常清楚的表述那么开罗宣言是。 对台湾回归中国又是一个加纳一道国际保障一个国际承诺。
After the Taiwan Conference, recovery of Taiwan was a foregone conclusion. The Chinese government officially launched the preparation work for taking over Taiwan. April 17, 1944 was the 49th anniversary of the Treaty of Shimonoseki. Under the Central Design Bureau of the Supreme National Defense Commission, Taiwan Investigation Commission was established. That was a special agency the Chinese government established to undertake the recovery of Taiwan. Chen Yi was appointed as its chairman. The then 61-year-old Chen Yi was from Shaoxing, Zhejiang. He has studied twice in Japan and married a Japanese woman. In 1935, he was invited as governor of Fujian to bring a delegation to Taiwan, visiting the Taiwan Exposition in commemoration of the 40th anniversary of the initiation of administration. He had made a field trip to Taiwan. He was an old Japan hand and an old Taiwan hand. Taiwan Investigation Commission consisted of 11 members, including 5 loyal Taiwan comrades: Huang Chaoqing, You Mijian, Qiu Niantai, Xie Nanguan, and Li Youban. The main tasks of this commission were to investigate Taiwan's situation, design strategies for taking over Taiwan, and train various professionals for the mission. Under the circumstances of tight personnel and funds, the commission tried hard to gather information, investigated all aspects of politics, economy, society, people's livelihood, police and justice system under the Japanese rule. This is the reference materials compiled by Taiwan Administrative Cadre Training Class for the Taiwan Investigation Commission. This training class started on December 25, 1944, and lasted for 4 months with 118 students, including Lin and Zheng Dong and 4 other Taiwan students. In October 1944, the Central Police Officer School organized a Taiwan Police Cadre workshop. The following year, the workshop was relocated to Fujian. Over 900 police officers were trained. Plenty of training classes for takeover personnel were held in Fujian and even in Taiwan in the early days of its recovery. The most important task of the commission was to design a Taiwan takeover plan based on full consultation with Taiwan people. In October 1944, a Taiwan takeover plan outline draft was prepared, covering internal affairs, diplomacy, military, education, culture, and more, with 16 categories and 82 items. In March 1945, the draft was examined and approved by Chiang Kai-shek. Taiwan takeover plan outline was formally confirmed. This building in Taipei was originally the Japanese Governor General's office of Taiwan. The construction started in 1912. It took 8 years to complete, costing 2.81 million yen. On December 30, 1944, Army General Rikichi Ando was appointed as the 19th as well as the last Governor General of Taiwan. 2 days after Rikichi Ando took office, the 1945 New Year arrived and Taiwan launched its comprehensive recruitment plan. Taiwan people once seen as second-class residents finally gained equal rights with Japanese in terms of military service. This was bragged by the authorities as the gate of honor for Taiwan people. By that, Japan had completely drawn 6 million Taiwan people into the Great East Asia Sacred War, an all-out war system. The entire society has seen the royal subject, sacred war flame, incited to its extreme. But this was the glorious sunset of the Japanese colonial rule before its collapse. It was the last scenes of 50-year Japanese occupation of Taiwan. The Taiwan minority youth Duan Zaiyi, who served in a Japanese artillery brigade in Tainan, once again turned to a deserter.
我主要咧看日本战败吼，拄啊无人食，佫话要互共事哦，我当当兵。
你是安怎较知影日本战败？
就安怎迄阵啊，就是讲看讲，第一点无春粮通我食啦，第二点迄个兵嫌这无够悬的，无够大的，也拢叫去，就战败啊。吼，无较早日本兵嘛拢有咧选，到尾也无啊，就是。 拢好啊，
含细汉的，我那小上照扣了对。
对啦，
啊，啊，佫无通食。
无人食。要唔来看报我就走啊，走开呀。
Duan Ziyi left, he hid in the mountains. This minority youth, who did not receive much education, predicted by his common sense that Japan would be defeated. That was quite unusual. At that time, the news about Japan's retreat from the front line was completely blocked. Even for those with higher social status, such as Huang Deshi, a senior intellectual, didn't know anything about the Taiwan Declaration at all. Huang Deshi recalled that in the spring of 1945, because of the increased bombings of Taipei, he evacuated his family to Xindian and built a cottage next to his cousin's coal mine. One day he picked up an airdropped flyer about the Cairo Declaration and realized that Taiwan would be returned to China after Japan's surrender. With the launch of a light counterattack in the Pacific battlefield from October 1944 to May 1945, Taiwan, which was used by Japan as a southward base, was continuously bombed by light airplanes, totaling over 10,000 sorties. On May 31st, 1945, the Governor General's office was hit and went up in flames. The Japanese reporter Ito Jiro of Taiwan Shinbao wrote, "The Governor General's office halls that overwhelm the surrounding buildings with a majestic poster are, in every sense, a symbol of the authority of the Japanese dominion over Taiwan, and such halls are now suddenly shattered by the U.S. military air raids. All of a sudden, I have the unlucky premonition." From July 17th to August 2nd, 1945, the leaders of the United States, Britain, and the Soviet Union held a conference in Potsdam. China, the United States, and the United Kingdom, and soon the Soviet Union included, signed the Potsdam Declaration.
波茨坦公告重申开罗宣言所列出的条件必须实施。开罗宣言和波茨坦公告就构成了关于台湾问题的一个国际文件。波茨坦公告实际上又是一个最后通牒，敦促日本必须投降。
The 2.28 Peace Memorial Park of Taipei, used to call New Park, was the home of the Taipei Broadcasting Station. On August 15, 1945, it was full of people. At 12 noon, the imperial rescript on the termination of the Great East Asia War was broadcasted by Emperor Hirohito's jewel voice, and Japan announced its surrender. The whole Japan suddenly fell into mourning. On the other hand, China was a completely different picture. Alas, in the past 50 years, they built an empire by force, but also lost by that, unexpectedly fast. That was what Lin Jiantang wrote on August 15, 1945. August 15th, sunny, Japan surrendered. Tainan doctor writer Wu Xinrong habitually wrote this diary in Japanese. The next day, Wu Xinrong's diary was written in Chinese. That morning, he rinsed mouth and washed face, then offered incense to ancestors and deities, and then rode out with his friends. We took off clothes and jumped into the creek, washing off the war dust of 10 years and bitter sweats of 50 years. After back to the shore, everyone shouted to the sea, "From today, we will open up to new life." The Taiwan Volunteers Corps completed their anti-Japanese mission. Longyan locals of Fujian province bid farewell to Captain Li Youban and his wife Yan Qiufan for their glorious return to Taiwan. After arriving in Xiamen, the Taiwan Volunteers Corps held a rally to celebrate the victory of the resistance war. Li Youbang wrote two big characters, Fujian. September 2nd, 1945, Tokyo Bay, Japan. On the USS Missouri, representatives from 9 countries accepted Japan's surrender.
那么日本在投降书里面也再次确认了他们完全接受波茨坦公告。
At 9 o'clock on September 9th, 1945, the signing ceremony of the Japanese surrender in China was held in the auditorium of the Central Military Academy on Huangpu Road, Nanjing. At the cost of sacrificing 35 million Chinese troops and civilians, this country finally won a great victory in the resistance war. The Chinese government's plan to recover Taiwan and the Penghu Islands finally reached the implementation stage. On August 29, 1945, Chiang Kai-shek issued a letter of appointment. Chen Yi was assigned as the chief executive of Taiwan. On October 5th, led by their director, General Ge Jingyuan, 71 people from the Forward Command Post flew to Taipei. On October 6th, at today's Taipei Guest House, the then Governor General's official residence, the signboard of the Forward Command Post was put up. At 2 p.m., the director of the Forward Command Post, Ge Jingyuan, led all officers and soldiers to hold the first flag-raising ceremony. The 50-year-old Hinomaru flute was finally placed by the Chinese national flag.
日本是8月15号投降，正式的受降典礼是10月25号，这里面真空了70几天。那么70几天，台湾的大部分的几百万的人，都几乎是在废墟之中等待新的政权。 那么，他们对祖国的一个，在那个时代里最纯真的表达，是在废墟之中架起的国旗。那么千言万语还不如一个画面。那我想的是一般老百姓的共同的心理。
This couplet was put up on Taipei's North Gate at that time. The city walls of Taipei had been demolished by the Japanese, leaving several gates behind. The city gates preserved memories. 50 years ago, Japanese invaders marched straight through this gate, then occupying the entire Taiwan. 50 years was long, but short. This land originally belongs to China. Soon it will be returned to the people of Taiwan. This couplet was posted outside Dao Dao Chen's famous Tianma tea shop. This Minbao, run by Taiwan civilians after the war, was the first newspaper in Chinese. Just within tens of days after Japan's surrender, 3 newspapers, including Minbao, 14 magazines, and 3 news agencies, emerged. From stores to restaurants and various businesses, all put up signs of celebrating recovery. Social organizations emerged like spring bamboo shoots. Writer Yang Yunping published an article. In reality, the biggest result of Japan's rule of Taiwan was that it has made many children and young people forget their mother tongue. Yang Yunping called for reposition of our language. The Chinese army units ordered to take over Taiwan were the 70th and the 62nd Armies. On October 17, 1945, a regiment of the 70th Army's advanced troops, under the command of Lieutenant General Chen Kongda, arrived at Keelung. They were furiously welcomed by Taiwan people. On the afternoon of October 24th, Chen Yi, the chief executive of Taiwan provincial government and Taiwan garrison commander-in-chief, flew from Shanghai to Taipei Songshan Airport. He was warmly welcomed by tens of thousands of people. At the airport, Chen Yi voiced his first words on his new job. He said, "Today, I come to Taiwan to be a servant of Taiwan instead of a so-called official." Today's Taipei's Sanyashan Hall was called the Public Hall. On October 25, 1945, roughly 300,000 people flooded here in the early morning. The surrender acceptance ceremony for Taiwan province in the China Theater was going to be held here. Representatives from the Chinese government, people of Taiwan, the President of the United States, and the Allied forces were present, totaling over 250. At 10 o'clock in the morning, amid sounds of saluting guns, the ceremony began. General Chen Yi, the chief official to accept surrender in Taiwan and the Penghu Islands China Theater, issued Order Number 1 to Japanese General Rikichi Ando. Rikichi Ando signed the certificate of acceptance. Then, Chief of Staff of the Japanese Taiwan Army, Haruki Isayama, presented this surrender document to Chen Yi. The surrender ceremony ended. In just 5 minutes, Japan's 50-year rule of Taiwan ended. Subsequently, Chen Yi delivered an impromptu radio speech. From today, Taiwan and the Penghu Islands have officially re-entered the territory of China. All lands, people, and political affairs have been placed under the sovereignty of the national government. This is a historically significant fact. I hereby report it to the Chinese compatriots and publicize it to the whole world. Taiwan has been recovered. October 25th, this historic day, was publicly designated in 1946 as Taiwan Recovery Day. From October 25th, the day of recovery, on all people in Taiwan have restored their original Chinese nationality. Those whose names were changed into Japanese during the Japanese occupation period have restored their Chinese names. Dear Mother, we miss you from time to time, and we have shed a lot of tears for missing you. We imagine that you must have also been anxious for your children in the war, and your dark hair has also become frosty with time. Lin Zhenheng got 16 stabbed and cut wounds, which were inflicted by the enemies in the battlefield of Burma. He struggled to get out from piles of dead people and survived. Now, Taiwan has been recovered. With his partially disabled hand, he wrote this letter to his mother in Taiwan. Taiwan has finally been recovered. My father's wish has been fulfilled. If he were aware of it, he would be laughing out loud. My personal disability is nothing. If our country can be victorious as well as strong and prosperous, and my fellow compatriots can regain their bright future and freedom, all of these body-damaging sacrifices are worthwhile. My mother, please do not be sad for my disability. You should be happy and smiley for the glory of our family. Those Japanese shrines were either demolished or converted into Chinese martyries. The Hsinchu County Martyry was the first converted in 1946. After the recovery of Taiwan, the Japanese used to designate June 17th as its initiation of Administration Day, whereas Taiwan people see it as a shame of Administration Day. On this day, a ceremony to position tablets of matris and deities was held in the matri. Those being worshipped include the ancestral saints and sages and other patriotic matris who sacrificed in the anti-Japanese war. Chu Niantai had returned. He stood in front of his father's portrait, holding incense sticks for prayer. from shrines to matres. They look the same, but have actually changed. What's worshipped inside are anti-Japanese matres. The supreme position that once enshrined of Japan's Amaterasu was replaced by the altar of Emperor Huangdi. As one of those who went through a lot during the recovery of Taiwan, he has stepped into this building that witnesses changes of history time and time again. In 1946, as secretary of Chiu Niantai, Lin Xian participated in the Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation. That year, Chiu Niantai returned to Taiwan. He noticed the emotional separation of local population from people of other provinces. In order to make up for the cracks and to establish political communications, Chiu Niantai came up with the idea of organizing the Taiwan Recovery Appreciation Delegation.
到祖国去表示我们的心意，所以邱先生就找林献堂先生帮忙。林献堂先生听了邱先生的话以后，他也非常的赞成。 就这样就把台湾地方上有名望的人，可以代表各地方的民众的人组织起来了。
In Beipu, Hsinchu, Jiang Zhenqiang, the posthumous son of the 1895 anti-Japanese martyr Jiang Chaozu, was invited to join the appreciation delegation by Chiu Niantai. Mining giant Li Jianxing, also the then chief of Ruifang Town, Taipei, joined the appreciation mission. In 1940, Li Jianxing, with his 4 brothers and over 200 staff of Ruisan Mining, were arrested by Japanese authorities on the excuse of a conspiracy with China and secretly planning a rebellion. Over 20 people, including Li Jianxing's 3rd younger brother and his eldest son-in-law, were tortured to death. Being sentenced for 12 years, Li Jianxing was not released from jail until Japan surrendered. In Taichung City, senior cultural celebrity Ye Rongzhong was picked by Lin Qiantang to join the mission. He was an active member of the nationalist movement in Taiwan during the Japanese occupation and had been a long-time secretary of Lin Qiantang. This was a group entrusted with Taiwan people's aspirations. It was headed by Lin Qiantang, with Chiu Niantai as its consultant. The name of the group was finally determined as the Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation. On August 29, 1946, it was sunny. The Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation set off from Taipei and flew to the mainland. On the morning of August 31st, the next day after arriving in Nanjing, a group of 15 people paid tribute to Zijin Mountain and paid respects to the Sun Yat-sen Mausoleum.
我们台湾光复志军团有3个主要的目标任务，一个是到南京去祭谒中山陵，中山先生要振兴中华，就是一个新生会，把光复台湾也是当做一个很重要的一个任务，现在台湾光复了，我们也应该到南京去，向他致敬，第二，就是在这个抗战的这个期间呢，我们大陆这个民众还有军队死伤了很多，抗战牺牲这么大，我们台湾才可以光复，可以维护到祖国怀抱里面来。所以我们呢也是应该到那边去，向大陆的这个人民，向全国死难的同胞还有他那个遗属表示这个谢意。
To this end, the tribute delegation and the Taiwan people raised 50 million yuan for the mainland families of the soldiers killed in the resistance war.
第三呢，我们应该到我们的原族皇陵去祭拜我们的原族，表示我们跟大陆 就同胞一样，大家都是炎黄的子孙。
The Huangdi Mausoleum is located on the top of Jiaoshan Mountain in Huanglin County, Shanxi Province, known as the greatest mausoleum of the world. Emperor Fujian, dating back 5,000 years, is the revered common humanistic ancestor of the descendants of Emperors Yan and Huan. Paying homage to Huangdi and acknowledging our origins was one of the three purposes of the Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation. On September 6th, a special plane from Nanjing arrived in Fujian. At that night, 3 members representing the Northwest China Party, government and military branches hosted a banquet to entertain this delegation. The next day, there was another welcome dinner, hosted by Xi'an's Association of Fujian fellow provincials with heated atmosphere. Ye Rongzhong saved these exquisite invitation cards. Wherever the tribute delegation went in the mainland, they received ceremonial welcomes and warm hospitalities. Dignitaries, including Yu Youren, Bai Zhongxi, even Chiang Kai-shek, received them and entertained the delegation, exchanging views on the reconstruction of Taiwan. On September 11, 1946, the Shanxi provincial government sent a special train escorting the delegation with high profile to visit the Huangdi Mausoleum. However, the road was blocked by the continuous rain. They failed to reach the destination, whereas they had to stop at Yao County. At 2 p.m. on September 12, at the Zhongshan Middle School playground, below the ancient tower of Yao County, Taiwan's tribute delegation and local gentry, teachers, and students, over 600 people gathered, solemnly standing here. We set up the altar to perform a remote sacrifice offering ritual. We respectfully report that Taiwan has been recovered and 6.5 million descendants have returned to the embrace of the motherland.
好像光复后回到我家里，见到我自己的父母，啊，像到我们祠堂去拜祖，更那个更激愤的那个心情，哎，在那边呢摇拜摇祭，我们皇帝啊，我们老祖先，哎。
This eulogy to Huangdi Mausoleum was drafted by Ye Rongzhong and revealed by Lin Qiantang and Chu Niantai. The main sacrifice offering officer Li Jianqing read it out loudly. 60 years later, in 2006, 88-year-old Lin Qiantang led the descendants of the Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation to the Huangdi Mausoleum and realized the unfulfilled wishes of the predecessors of the tribute delegation. They engraved the historical eulogy to Huangdi Mausoleum on a monument and erected it in the Huangdi Mausoleum. That year, on the eve of leaving Fujian, on behalf of the Taiwan Recovery Tribute Delegation, Lin Qiantang made an earnest and sincere farewell remark. In it, he mentioned, "After the recovery, I have felt that there is a lovely country to protect, a nation that we can show loyalty to. Never want to see a broken country, a divided nation again."